Well, if you're after a mid-range smartphone right now, well, frankly, you've got a ridiculous amount of choice. It's a veritable Vegas buffet of blowers, except thankfully most of them haven't been sneezed on or fingered by sweaty strangers, and hopefully none of them will have your arse glued to a toilet seat for about 12 hours straight. Now, I've reviewed dozens of the latest and spangliest mid-range smartphones, using them as my full-time blower to really test out that camera tech, performance, battery life, etc. So here's my pick of the best mid-range phones right now as we're hitting the midpoint of 2025. And for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Now, one of the absolute first mid-range mobiles you should absolutely have a good hard gander at is Google's Pixel 9a. Which will save you several whiskeys worth of cash versus the regular Pixel 9 flagship phone, despite being almost as lovely. The Pixel 9a is another dinky delight at just 6.3 inches, although the rather chunky bezels do mean it's not actually that compact. While Google axing that camera bar has been met with mixed emotions online, ranging from, oh, that's quite nicely streamlined, to, oh my god, I'm actually going to strap a grenade to my and f you into oblivion. Well-reasoned, perfectly calm debate. As always, that's the internet for you. The brains of the Pixel 9a is that same Tensor G4 chipset that Google crammed into those flagships, complete with almost all of the usual smart-ass AI-type shenanigans. And this Pixel can still just about manage some Wuthering and Waves action on the side, though it is quite a juddery experience compared with some of the other mid-rangers in this best-of roundup. Still, any movie lovers will enjoy that poppy 6.3-inch OLED screen, while the stereo speaker setup is rather respectable. Battery life is excellent, even if the charging speeds aren't quite as impressive. And Google certainly doesn't disappoint on the software support side of things, with 7 years of OS and security updates to look forward to. Which means my Pixel 9a will almost certainly outlive me, unless I somehow manage to curb my insatiable dedication to Greg's lunchtime meal deals. But as always, one of the true highlights of this Google handset is the excellent camera tech. No, the hardware isn't as advanced as the flagship Pixel 9s, but that top-notch image processing smarts means you'll get good-looking pics at almost any time of day. And even if your photos do look a bit crap, well, no worries. Google's editing tools will rescue even the cackiest of snaps. My full Pixel 9a review is live right now, as is my side-by-side comparison with the rest of the Pixel 9 family, so you can see which one is best for you. One of my other favourite mid-range phones right now is the OnePlus Nord 4, a full metal banger that conjures up glorious flashbacks of HTC and LG blowers from back in the day. Better days all around, I think we can agree, especially as I still had some hair on my head and my liver wasn't quite as hurty. As well as that hardy and lovable design, the Nord 4 boasts extended OS upgrade support and a slick bit of Oxygen OS, complete with a proper gaming mode and quite a few other useful extras. The massive 6.74-inch AMOLED screen is a beaut, and your pokes and prods will register even when this phone is proper moist, making it ideal when living in damp fests like the UK. A capable Snapdragon 7 Plus Gen 3 powers the Nord 4, so it can handle pretty much anything you hoy at it, including some serious gaming on titles like Genshin, without suffering a metaphorical prolapse of its metaphorical rectum. And the battery life here is absolutely sublime, which is certainly helped along by the fact that it's got a mighty 5,500 mAh capacity cell stuffed inside of that metal body. And even if the Nord 4 does run dry, you've got that 100 watt Super VOOC wide charging support, so bung a cable in it and it'll charge up faster than you can say this charges up really jolly fast. Actually, no, not quite that quick, but it's pretty nippy. And while the camera results aren't quite as reliable as Google's, this OnePlus mobile can still produce attractive looking photos even in quite challenging conditions. So overall, it's a bit of a cracker. Now, if you're tempted to spunk out a big pile of cash for Samsung's Galaxy S25 flagship phone, or one of its even bigger, even pricier siblings, well, maybe stick that big wad of cash back in your pants and consider the cheaper Galaxy A56 instead. This capable mid-range smartphone boasts a similar premium water-resistant design to the Galaxy S25, plus almost the same One UI experience and an impressive 6 full years of software support. Otherwise, some of those specs have been slashed somewhat to reach a more palatable asking price. So for example, while the Exynos chipset can handle some gaming on the side, tougher stuff like Wuthering Waves can be rather juddery. And that 6.7-inch 120Hz Super AMOLED display has once again grown versus the previous model, and it's ever so slightly brighter as well, while that storage has actually doubled. And the battery life is pretty bloody good, and thankfully the Galaxy A56 isn't horrendously slow at recharging unlike previous generations, while that camera tech is also pretty decent, so Samsung fans should enjoy. Otherwise, for a little bit less cash, there's always Samsung's Galaxy A36. And this is another water-resistant blower with a 120Hz AMOLED screen, stereo speakers, and some rather solid optics for a respectable asking price. Battery life is brilliant, providing stress-free all-day play, although yes, once again that performance is a wee bit shaky. And as with the A56, you've got a full 6 years of software support. And my full review of the Galaxy A56 and A36 is live right now. Now moving on, Nothing is another dependable source of quality mid-range blowers, and their latest duo, the Phone 3a and the Phone 3a Pro, are two of my absolute favourites. This slightly chunky smartphone pair sport that iconic glyph disco arse which flashes to notify you of messages, or in time to whatever banging tunes you've chucked on. It's also pretty handy if you want to get somebody's attention or startle a would-be mugger. Flip these phones over and the other end is just as delightful, serving up a poppy OLED display, while the stereo speaker setup is decent enough for enjoying a spot of Netflix, or just the satisfying sound of you beating Gribblies right in their chops with an inappropriately attired anime lass. Speaking of which, thanks to those Snapdragon smarts, the Nothing Phone 3a and the Nothing Phone 3a Pro are nippy enough to play any game out there, even a bit of Wuthering Waves. Nothing OS is as lovable as ever, now bolstered by the surprisingly effective Essential Space, which allows you to set reminders and build your to-do list with just the push of a button. And if you decide to go pro, you'll also enjoy some lovely eSIM support. But the main difference between this pair is that camera setup. Both the 3a and the 3a Pro sport a flexible triple lens arrangement, though the Pro is superior in low light conditions and for any zoom type shenanigans. But all things considered, I'd like to have either one of these literally flashy phones stuffed into my shorts. And if you want to go proper cheap, well, Nothing also offers the immensely affordable CMF Phone 2 Pro. A fully customizable smartphone offering pretty impressive specs for not much more than 200 quid. You can see my full review of this bad boy as well as the Nothing Phone 3a and 3a Pro right here on Tech Spurt. I've also included the CMF Phone 2 Pro in my best budget phones roundup for blowers that cost under 300 quid. Now, if you're after a mid-range smartphone, well, Motorola seems to spaff out bloody dozens of the buggers every single year, and I try and cover as many of them as humanly possible, to the point where I should actually change the name of this channel to Moto Spurt. And one of their greatest mid-range offerings right now is the Edge 60 Fusion. That supremely slimline design is beautifully complemented by a strokeably soft rear end, making it one of the most standout glamorous blowers in this lineup. The battery life is absolutely stellar, performance is decent, and Motorola has shoved on a few fresh AI features which are rather promising, or at least a lot less bollocks than Apple's attempts so far. The Edge 60 Fusion sports a stunning POLED screen with curved edges, while the camera tech is also surprisingly capable across a range of conditions. In fact, with the exception of Motorola's less than timely update efforts and their slightly weird obsession with dousing their phones in perfume, there's very little to actually mourn about with the Edge 60 Fusion. Now, one of the best manufacturers when it comes to beefy hardware for not much dough is Xiaomi, and definitely check out its latest Redmi Note 14 Pro Plus 5G. And this is yet another well-stacked 6.67-incher, this time with a slightly curved screen as well as a soft touch finish if you grab this purple effort. The frame may be plastic, but you've got Gorilla Glass Victus 2 protecting the front end. And like the previous generation, it's IP68 water and dust resistant, so it can get very mucky and very moist. So overall, it's one of the most rugged mid-range mobiles right now. And while the HyperOS software has plenty of critics, Xiaomi rarely disappoints with the hardware. So that 6.67-inch OLED screen is pleasingly crisp, poppy and bright, with PWM dimming for more sensitive peepers. Performance is respectable too, thanks to the Snapdragon 7S Gen 3 chipset, which can handle even more demanding titles like Weather and Waves, provided you don't boost the graphics settings. The Redmi Note 14 Pro Plus's 5100 mAh capacity battery isn't the biggest here, but a single charge should last you a full intense day, no worries. And if you are nearly drained, well, that's alright because you've got 120 watt wired fast charging, so it'll fill back up again extremely quickly. Plus, the 200 meg main shooter is decent enough for everyday snapping, even if it does fart out the occasional soft looking pic, especially when shooting portraits. For a few pun less, you can grab the Redmi Note 14 Pro 5G, which may lose those plus plaudits, but it's still a proper mid-range corker. The regular Pro is just as water resistant as the Pro Plus, with that lovely Victus 2 screen protection back again, and it comes complete with the same excellent display and stereo speaker setup. And yes, you once again have that same 200 meg camera slapped on the back end. Not to mention the same capacity battery, although sadly this one doesn't charge up quite as quick. The other big change is the chipset, which has been swapped out for MediaTek's Dimensity 7300 Ultra. Now, this is still fine for gaming with the likes of PUBG and Call of Duty Mobile, but you will struggle with hardcore stuff like Genshin Impact and Weather and Waves. And if you fancy livening up your afternoon with some sweat-inducing three-way action, well, I've compared the Redmi Note 14 Pro Plus 5G, the Redmi Note 14 Pro 5G, and the vanilla Note 14 5G side by side here on Tech Spurt, so go get that in your eyeballs. And if you've got a bit more cash to spunk on your mid-range smartphone, well, I'd hardly recommend the Xiaomi 14T. It's yet another 6.67-incher with IP68 water and dust resistance, but also a plastic frame that does cheapen the feel. That big old AMOLED screen is similar to the Redmi, except this time you've got both HDR10+ and Dolby Vision support. It's bright enough to clearly see on a sunny day, while the refresh scales up to a creamy smooth 144Hz. Great for any gamers out there. Speaking of which, that performance is also a step up thanks to MediaTek's Dimensity 8300 Ultra, which is kept nice and cool thanks to Xiaomi's stainless steel vapor chamber. And when you drain that 5000 mAh battery, you can refill it pretty nippily with the 67 watt hypercharge action. Although yes, once again, bugger all wireless charging to speak of. The Xiaomi's 50 meg main camera is bolstered by some Leica processing smarts which help to produce sharp, detailed pic snaps with either a natural or a bright and vibrant finish, complete with a telephoto shooter to get that little bit closer to the action. So overall, the Xiaomi 14T is a bit of a banger. It doesn't do anything different, but it does do everything rather well. And then to make things a bit more complicated, there's also Poco smartphones, and Poco is basically a sub-brand of Xiaomi which reskins their Chinese smartphones which don't launch globally. Apparently Poco means not much in Spanish, and this here Poco X7 Pro certainly doesn't cost much, especially considering the clever pants tech packed inside of this wee bugger. Oh, and quick fun fact, apparently Poco is also Swahili slang for prostitute. Facts that are fun. And the Poco X7 Pro is, hey, another 6.67-inch hand filler with a 1.5K display, although this time the battery is a whopping great 6000 mAh morpho with 90 watts fast charging. So it's a great choice for anyone who has their smartphone glued to their palm most of the day. A Dimensity 8400 Ultra powers this Poco, complete with ice-cool tech for any gamers who just can't get enough of that screen-mashing Weather and Waves action. And yes, you do get the same HyperOS software setup as Xiaomi's Redmi Note 14 blowers. A 50 meg rear camera using Sony's IMX882 sensor is backed by a basic 8 meg ultra-wide shooter, and the Poco X7 Pro is okay for everyday snaps, if rather unremarkable. And hey, if you've got a thing for dead Marvel dudes, there's always this Iron Man edition. Sorry, bit of a spoiler alert for Avengers Endgame there, if you somehow haven't managed to see it these past 5 years. Alternatively, there's also the Poco F7 Pro, where the F stands for flippin' heck, that's pretty good value for money. And this is another beefy blower boasting a crispy 6.67-inch screen as well as a 6000 mAh battery, just like the X7 Pro. But this time, however, it's a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 in charge for a supremely smooth gaming experience, while the 50MP main camera swaps that sensor for the Lite Fusion 800 to pump out head-noddingly solid shots. And naturally, you can check out my full reviews of both of these Poco smartphones right now here on Tech Spurt. Next up, the Honor 400 Lite, an absolutely monstrous blower with a poppy AMOLED screen, big old battery and a selfie cam that's ideal for those sexy club snaps. Plus a camera button that's somehow less rubbish than the iPhone 16 Pros, despite the fact that Apple's brick costs 4 times as much. Honor appears to have taken quite a lot of inspiration from Apple, unfortunately, for one matching that boxy design. Though at least the 400 Lite packs in some AI tools that aren't total toilet. You've also got double the storage of a regular iPhone, while the crisp and punchy 6.7-inch screen features a similar floating turd notch up top. Even the camera results are iPhone-esque with oversaturated pics and boosted colours. As for the performance, well, sadly more demanding games do struggle, but optimised apps like PUBG and Call of Duty fare just fine. So if you fancy an iPhone beat-and blower for a fraction of the price, well, check it out. Or if you fancy yourself a dedicated gaming smartphone without spunking out ridiculous amounts of cash, well, point your eyeballs at the REDMAGIC 10 Air. You got some of the best REDMAGIC features stuffed in there, including responsive shoulder buttons and a seriously stacked gaming toolbar to give you a leg up in PUBG, etc. While the older Snapdragon chipset and the more basic cooling setup can still cope admirably with the toughest memory guzzling titles out there, including Wuthering Waves. And oh yes, you still get that hilarious waifu smartphone assistant, Mora. And if you haven't been acquainted with Mora in the past, well, just imagine Alexa if she was incredibly horny and you could play dress up together.
I'm warning you, Commander. You're making a risky move.
Honestly, who needs Genshin Impact when you got this?
Hey, there are no switches there.
You tell them, Mora. Get HR involved. And last up, if you don't mind the extra ball ache of actually tracking one down, I'd highly recommend the Vivo V50, especially to any camera fans out there. The V50 is a near 6.8-inch stunner with a bright attention-grabbing OLED screen, a massive 6000 mAh fast-charging battery, 512 gigs of storage, as well as a cracking bit of Zeiss branded camera tech. But it is also a complete twat to find here in the UK, where it's basically an import job. So unless you live somewhere where it's actually stocked, I'd say maybe don't bother. And there you have it, my lovelies. That's my pick of the best mid-range smartphones you can snaffle yourself here in Byyyyyyeeeee right now. Now, did I miss off your own personal favourite mid-range blower? Well, that's probably because I haven't actually bloody tested the thing, or maybe it's just not quite as good as you reckon. Definitely let me know what a massive bald knobber I am down in the comments below, including to what your picks would have been. Please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest tech, and have yourselves a ruddy wonderful rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you!